Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Tables with your host, Rob Bradley,
John Charles Ciccarelli,
James Burrows,
and Damien Hallwood.
Yes, it is still January, and yes, I'm afraid so. And the ice is out. I hope you're all nice and safe out there on your way to work and not slipping all over the place like I did this morning and bashed my head against the pavement. Yeah, I forgot to tell you guys about that. Yeah, when I was literally... yeah. Went to get in the car, and as I got out of my house, I was like, dum-da-dum-da-dum, not really thinking about anything, and just sort of like, slipped over, bashed my head, and made a complete prat of myself in front of the local cat that was looking at me, that meowed and then ran off.
It will have judged you.
It would have.
Yes.
Oh well, yeah.
One way or another. Maybe
I felt judged. Oh, how are you guys doing? All well?
Good. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah, good, thank you.
Nice. What's the weather like in New York, JC? Is it all
Pretty chilly. Probably not as bad as you guys at the moment. But yeah, we had a lot of black ice too. We had our first snowfall of the year a couple of days ago. Not too bad.
I noticed that one of your snowshoes is off the wall behind you there. Is that because they've been used?
I don't. These are far older and more decorative than they seem. So it's off the wall because my chair keeps colliding into it. So
right.
This is where I
Are they antiques?
Yeah. These are older than I am for sure.
Oh wow, cool.
Antique snowshoes. They do look antique-y.
Mm-hmm.
Have they ever been
traditionally made and everything else? So.
Oh wow, okay. Have they ever been used?
I have put them on. I have photos of when I was younger and trudging along in the snowshoes, but I don't think they're used very frequently. So no.
So not part of a D&D costume where you're in a Icewind Dale, no kind of thing.
Why do you say that now? I should have thought of that 42 weeks ago when I started. Damn it.
Now is the perfect time, JC. The Frost Maiden is out. She's sprinkling rime and ice over all of our respective homes. It's time to get them out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. But then I'll have to switch the camera view to my feet for my players, and it'll just be my feet in the camera, but my voice coming through during a session. So that could be interesting, I guess.
I hear you can make good money doing that.
Listen,
yeah. Why not?
The internet is a wonderful place for many things. Yes.
Mm-hmm. How's Scunthorpe, Damien?
Frosty. Yeah. I think we hit -5 overnight.
Nice.
Celsius, so
wow.
Yeah, pretty cold.
Stay frosty.
Yeah, it's pretty cold here. Nice sprinkle of frost. We did have some snow earlier today, actually, just a light dusting, but it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, hey ho. Anyway,
No,
and James,
no snow
Cambridgeshire? No,
my car was iced over this morning for work.
Yeah,
but beyond
what'd you do? What's your tactics? What's your tactic? How'd you get rid of the ice? What'd you do?
This is embarrassing.
Go on.
Because I don't have a proper scraper. The only thing that I could pull out from the kitchen this morning was a wooden spoon. Because usually, obviously, what you use is a plastic fish slice is like a good alternative to like an ice scraper. But that had been used the night before, and I hadn't put the dishwasher on, so I couldn't use that. Just be smearing like pasta all over my windshield.
Of course.
So it was a wooden spoon, and
it's the Italian way to do it. You just throw pasta on the ice.
I'll let you know if that works. I'll give it a go. But no, so the wooden spoon was fucking useless, actually, and it took me quite a long time to de-ice the front, back, and side windows of the car.
Do you have heated windscreens?
I do. So I turned that on and then was scraping away. I didn't realise my car was going to be frozen over. It didn't look icy outside when I woke up, so I thought I was safe. I wasn't safe.
No, you're never safe.
So I was rushing to do it.
Next time, James, you do what my nana says, all right? You throw a little bit of rigatoni on it and it just comes right out, no problem.
I'm just imagining the neighbors looking out of the curtains, like bleary-eyed, and seeing just these crimson guts of pasta all over the front of a car, and the first impression that would give, oh God!
Is everyone okay? They're fine. Just getting rid of this pasta sauce.
Yeah. I actually quite fancy pasta now. Oh, you said that.
So there
Oh,
you
it's
go.
lunchtime, isn't it? That's why I'm not having lunch. It's like starting at like was something start about 12:30, isn't it? Now it's like 10 to 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
God, yeah, I could
Yeah,
really
it's,
do it. Could really do with some pasta.
now
What's
you
your
know for tonight.
what's your favorite Italian dish, guys? Would you like? What's your
We-
go
Oh
to?
God, how can I choose? Man.
Super boring. Lasagna all the
That's
way. A
not
good,
boring.
Yeah,
a good
That's not boring,
lasagna.
man. Lasagna is great.
I
What
love a
about?
good
It's not boring.
lasagna.
Yeah. If you get
Chicken parm for me, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you get a good lasagna, you're on the money.
Mhm.
Have you guys seen the Italian chopped tomatoes tins that you can get that are like really, really nice?
Yes, I have had one of those when I was actually in London, believe it or not. And it
Yeah,
was
they're really
so
good, aren't they? They're really
Yeah.
good.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
It's like you get like cheapy ones that you can buy on the shelf. But there's like these one tin. They look like they're straight from Italy.
Hmm.
I can't remember the name of them, but oh my God, you stick them in a
Yeah.
pasta sauce. Ah,
It's
forget
so
about it.
rich. It's so
Mm.
thick. It's really, really good. I
Yeah.
also I'm a big fan of gnocchi.
Oh yeah,
I know,
gnocchi. Yeah, I
yeah,
love gnocchi.
just with the right kind of like pesto sauce mixed in with a couple
Mm.
of other things, it makes a great like mid-afternoon snack and or something to accompany a lighter dinner. It's so good.
Oh man, I'm starving. I'm so
Hmm.
starving.
We'll
I
keep
skipped-
talking
I
about food. We
skipped
can make this
breakfast.
a D&D food episode.
Mm.
I'll get my my official WotC cookbook and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, actually, when you do D&D downtime with your groups, and if you've ever sort of, I don't know if you've ever done this with any of your groups, but what's your go-to thing to do? Do you have like meals with them? Do you have your own, the NPCs that you're playing, or what kind of stuff do you guys do?
I have one. I have my players always have a drinking contest in
Classic.
downtime.
Ooh.
Nice.
And they roll off against each other in a drinking contest to see who drinks the most, and then a small trophy is passed from one to another within the
Wow.
party.
Nice.
And it has like various effects. So as they get more inebriated, it goes from like, oh, you're slightly tipsy. Okay, now you're huggy. You wanted to hug everyone. Then you're singy. You want to just sing all the time. So you need
Nice.
to do that in character. And then you're unintelligible but very talkative. Then you're unconscious.
Brilliant.
Oh no, there is another one. There's just a silent stage as well, where you're just trying desperately to keep it together, and then you're
See now,
unconscious.
James, you're making me pull out my homebrew rules for inebriation, which I have all typed. What about you, Damien? Do you have a system for that?
No, not specifically. Historically, a lot of the campaigns I've run have been way out of the bounds of civilization, so a lot of the downtime is around camp. My favorite thing about that downtime is whenever I get an extended role playing session out of that, when the guys are on watch or just sitting down to get the camp prepared, and they start a conversation, and especially when it's a conversation that's kind of leads into asking one of them usually asking questions about another's motives or backstory or something that they were afraid of and why, and these kind of questions that come up, and it grows into this extended, just one of the best sort of GM sit back and watch moments of just
Yeah.
seeing them converse and bring their characters
Yeah.
to life. And yeah, I love that. I love
Those are
anytime that
those are my
happens.
favorites. When you get to just literally do nothing for 5 minutes apart from drink in and appreciate. Even now
Yeah.
and then, I'll pull out my notebook and write notes while they're doing that, if they're sharing personal stories and stuff. But it's the beautiful thing.
How do you encourage them to do that?
I generally, as part of setting watches, aside from obviously asking them to decide the order of watch and who will watch when and who's going to be together, I'll try and encourage mixing that up so that different people get to be on watch at different times together, and also make sure I always ask, as part of downtime, whether it's a camp, overnight, or whether it's just resting at all, is make sure I'm always asking, is there anything anybody wishes to discuss? Not just what do you want to do or who's setting watch, but is there anything you guys want to discuss?
Yeah, is there
Anybody you
anything of
want to
note
talk
that you
to?
guys are doing? Are you
Yeah.
working on a kit? Are you? Yeah. So I
But
usually
beyond
ask.
that,
Right?
beyond that, asking specifically, is there anybody you want to talk to? Is there anything you want to discuss? And that tends to prompt people to think, oh yeah, there was that, they behaved a little strangely on that last little adventure. I wanted to ask them about that. So it usually prompts people to kind of ask a probing question, and then that kind of gets the ball rolling on
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up, Rob, because
Hmm.
I pulled up my inebriation rules, which happens to be on the same page as my roleplay during rests optional rule.
Oh, really?
So here, I'll read it out. It's not too long, but this is something that I think I tried. I haven't officially like implemented this. This is just something I have there for people to know that it's an option. Um, but here it goes. So roleplay during rests. These are optional rules to help explore relationships between characters and to help develop backstories. Bullet 1. Every short rest requires at least 1 minute of real-time roleplay between 2 or more characters. Every long rest requires at least 5 minutes of real-time roleplay between 2 or more characters. Or, if characters are taking alternate watches, 1 minute per shift. Every hour of travel or more. This is what I try to use to make long bouts of travel a little bit more dynamic instead of what's the word I'm looking for? Instead of just cutting to like the next significant moment.
Yeah, like a montage.
Like a montage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every hour of travel or more requires 1 minute of real-time roleplay between 2 or more characters. So this is how it works. Once per rest, one character picks another and rolls a charisma ability check. The selected character can be chosen randomly, like rolling a dice. If there's 4, you roll a d4, whatever, or via a round robin style. Repeats are excluded until everyone has got a chance. A high result, 17 or higher on these charisma checks, means a bond. The characters find a topic they bond over. And that could be anything, right? Just, if it's music, if it's their favorite food, if just some topic that they like together. A middling result, 9 to a 16, you reveal something about that other character's backstory or background that wasn't previously known. And this can help put people on the spot too, right? And just like have them generate or improvise something about their background. They can also discover the answer to a question that they have about that character. And then
That's
a
cool.
low result, 8 or lower, means bad blood. The characters find a topic they adamantly disagree over.
Oh,
Feel
wow,
free to
okay.
play out the scene. Players can decide in advance what they want to be the scene about, or what they want the scene to be about, or they can improvise it on the fly. But either way, the rolling character gets to, quote, set the scene.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really fucking cool. Could you send it to me, JC?
Yeah, very cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, because that's ace. Really ace. Would you be
I
happy with
really
us
need to
sharing
like
it?
go back to this and implement it a little bit more. But yeah.
Would you be happy sharing it in the Would you be happy with me sharing it in the podcast next?
Yeah, in the Discord,
People
sure.
can have a sweet.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want, I can send you the whole page with my stacking inebriation levels too, which includes I have levels 1 through 6. You're always at level 0, which is sober, no additional effects, of course. Then you get to level 1 is buzzed, 2 is tipsy, 3 is sloshed, 4 is plastered, but depending on the UK audiences that I sometimes have, this could be something else. You guys have about a million other terms for drunk that we don't. Then 5 is wasted and 6 is officially passed out. So at buzzed, you have advantage on saving throws against being frightened, which is like a positive effect because you have a little liquid courage, right? And then tipsy is unable to concentrate, take the dash action, or move more than 10 feet in the same direction each turn.
Right.
Sloshed in level 3 is gain temporary hit points equal to your con mod plus 1 hit die roll, because at this point the alcohol is kind of giving you that numbing feeling. 4 is slowed, meaning you're moving at half speed and you can speak only falteringly. 5 being wasted is speed reduced to 0, you just can't move anymore, and resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And then 6 is unconscious, and you have a -1 stacking penalty to all rolls until you get there. So alternating
cool.
good and bad benefits, basically. And
Do
then I have
they
a little thing
stack
for
like
hangovers.
exhaustion, except for where of course they supersede each other, like speed half, speed 0. They stack, I assume, and
they stack. And I have rules for it where it's like for every hour that passes, you can repeat a saving throw, reducing your inebriation by 1 on a success. Finishing a short rest officially reduces your level by 1, as does anything that cures poison. And then finishing a long rest removes all inebriation levels as long as you ingest some food and non-alcoholic drink. But then there's also hangovers. So if you have 3 or more and then you do a long rest, you have to roll a final con save or be hungover. And to remember anything from that night, you have to make an intelligence saving throw with 10 plus the highest level you attained during the last 24 hours and stuff. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
That's fun.
I'll send it. I'll send it so you guys can take a look and steal if you
Yeah,
want.
definitely do, because I'm well interested in that, because I've got my group at the moment that I'm playing with. They're wonderful. They're like, they're great guys, great group of guys, really, really cool. The only element that they really struggle with is putting across their own individual characters' stories in some way. So in order to build their characters' individual arcs, it's been really difficult for me to do that, because they don't tend to, they just want to just like crack on with the story. They want to figure out what's going on here, figure out what's going on there, solve that puzzle, kill that monster. Okay, what's this happening here? Da-da-da-da. Ask this NPC these questions and then move on. There's like no like into like play between themselves. So that would
So
be
they
really
don't really
helpful.
know too much about themselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that'd be really, really helpful. Nice one.
Cool.
Thank you very much, JC. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. So, what news is there this week then, Damien?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. We'll start with the sort of sad news first, because there was a passing in the industry. Janelle Jacquez. She's a designer and illustrator. She passed away at 67 from a disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is apparently rare, not necessarily fatal, but in this case, sadly, has been.
Sad.
She was it sounds like she's been pretty instrumental in the early days of things like TSR. She's also gone on to work for Chaosium of Call of Cthulhu fame. She worked on video games, including at id Software on Quake. So she's kind of been throughout the gaming space. And she's also a campaigner for transgender rights as well, and has been instrumental in some laws being passed in the States for that too. So a pretty remarkable woman, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's a shame.
A lot of her artwork, unfortunately, is from before I was really into the hobby, but looking at some of it's beautiful. She did a cover for an adventure called Dragon Mountain from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Beautiful sort of icy blue background with a big red dragon on the front of it, spreading its wings and looking fierce. So yeah, that's.
Oh, she did a lot of like the Forgotten Realms covers from AD&D. I see. Yeah, very like iconic, colorful second edition and third edition stuff.
Yeah, very cool, very classic style of art. And it seems like a bunch of designers are planning to memorialize her with a basically like a mega dungeon game jam, where they're accepting submissions currently for rooms, tiles, ideas that can all be used in a big product that I assume is going to be published or at least released online. So that's pretty cool that they're all kind of rallying around to pay homage to someone who's clearly had a big impact on the industry.
Right on.
So sad news to begin with. The rest of it is really this continuing trend of more people getting into the RPG space. And certainly, if not the RPG space, then the fantasy RPG space. It looks like Son of Oak, who produced City of Mist, are getting into the TTRPG space with Legend in the Mist, which will be on Kickstarter in February, and is described as being a kind of an old fireside tale is the term they used. It's really beautiful artwork. It's that kind of Western anime style that looks like the main image that they're showing for it. And it uses a system that sounds like it's less dice and more kind of RP heavy and using descriptors and things like that to achieve things rather than dice rolling. I've never played City of Mist, but I've heard of it. It's this sort of neo-noir modern role-playing game.
Right. What's it called again?
City of Mist is the game that is
the game
already exists.
No, I mean this new system, Adventures in the Mist?
Legend in the Mist.
Oh, Legend in the Mist. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I was just checking it out. Yeah.
Nice. It sounds really nice. I think they're going to be releasing a source book for it too, for their own campaign world. But you're, of course, as with any of these, you're free to create your own.
Right.
Yeah, more and more people, it seems, are diving into the fantasy role-playing scene,
Good.
which can only be a good thing, right? I mean, competition fuels creativity, so
Welcome to the dark side, normies. We have cookies. Yes.
that's it.
How's that MCDM RPG thing going? Because didn't they like
Is it
fundraise
over 4 million now?
Jeez, is it
Four-
really?
4.5
They're
million,
on,
I think.
Holy
that's
shit.
insane.
That
Yeah,
is crazy.
doing really, really well.
But their other work was quality stuff, so it makes sense that people sort of trust them to produce something worth backing.
Yeah, they've done some amazing sort of third-party source books for 5e.
Yeah, I picked up their last one, Flea Mortals. I put in my Kickstarter backer for that like 2 years ago, and they finally released the physical edition, and I've been digging through it. It's really good. It's a lot of
I need
fun.
to
But
get
like
that.
you can kind of tell based on how many optional rules that they put in there that they were already thinking about an RPG in the future, right? Because it's 5e compatible, but with a lot of extra alternate stuff. It's not just stat blocks. It's referencing a lot of new mechanics and conditions and things like that don't necessarily you wouldn't necessarily know just off the bat. You have to kind of read the intros. So I was reading it through, and I'm like, I can see where this is going, Matt. I know what you're up to. And sure enough, now we have their $4 million thing.
I believe they've already
4.6.
said. I believe they've already said that all of those books are going to be reworked to be used in there. If they need it, they're going to be reused to work in that system for them as well. I think I get the impression, I don't know if he's said as much out loud, but I get the impression that Matt Colville and his team are quite heavily inspired by 4th edition, a very tactical game with lots of options, and this idea of different monsters having different roles on the battlefield that are specifically called out.
Controller.
Controller, lurker. If anybody knows 4th edition very well, it did used to have this system where each monster would have a role on the battlefield, and it would encourage you to use them that way. So you'd have a lurker in the background would be your kind of rogue or your creeping shadow monster. You'd have a controller, which would be your warlord at the front of the battle, kind of guiding or working a lot like a fighter, a battle master fighter, I think, kind of directing the field. You'd have minions as well, which are these monsters that function as normal monsters, but they only have a single hit point, allowing you to wade through huge numbers of them, but them still be a threat. It really does sound like this new system that they're creating is going to have some inspirations from that style of game. And I have thought about going back and running a 4th edition game because it is very different to 5th edition. Your abilities are tied to, you have like daily abilities and encounter abilities, which work a bit like spells, but even fighters and barbarians have these like daily abilities, very much like an MMO, like World of Warcraft or something like that.
Yeah, everything had a power. I remember when I ran my very first 5e game and people were like making their characters, and one of my friends said, I don't understand, where's my stuff? And I said, what do you mean, like your inventory? And she was like, no, where are my powers? And I was like, you played 4th edition, didn't you? And she was playing a rogue. It wasn't like she had much magic at level 1, but she was used to seeing like the abilities that you could do, the little green boxes that you would get that could tell you what kind of powers and abilities you had. So yeah, I remember. Did you guys play 4E, Robin? No?
No, I had it, and I think we did like a small one-shot sort of introduction game, and I liked how it provided players with a balanced and structured set of abilities, and it really emphasized teamwork in combat, which was good.
Yeah,
that's kind of what
that was a big part of it for sure. Yeah,
that's definitely what I took away from it when I in comparison to like 5th edition. 5th edition doesn't really. I think 5th edition is more kind of it's aimed more at the accessibility for newcomers.
Right.
I find, and once they're in, it's like okay, you're going to work out your tactics, and it's like, well, I don't know. Whereas in 4th edition, it's like you clearly have like a set, like you have to have tactics
You
because
need the tactics. It's there
because-
from the beginning.
yeah, because your DM is coming at you with a very tactical sort of approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a shame that 5th edition or maybe they'll do this with the future editions that D&D will bring out. Being able to choose between the two, being able to have a tactical approach, and these are your options. But if you don't want to do that and you want to have a newcomer approach, these are your options.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I do like how in 5th edition, even though it's not as tactical, there is that sort of growth into it, and you can see and encourage it, right? You start with a new group of players, and it's just kind of whatever, they throw whatever at the wall and see what sticks, and they dive right into it. But then later on, they learn about flanking. Sure, it's an optional rule, but they learn about flanking, or they learn about cover, and they start coming up with things like standard marching order and stuff like that, and little by little they get a little bit more tactical, and then you can start upping the challenge. It's a nice thing to watch develop.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, 5th edition focuses so much more on storytelling and narrative to kind of start coming out of the game and start talking about tactics and so on. It starts to feel like a game, really, doesn't it? And I think that might be why they went in a different direction with it, is because with 5th edition you've got that immersion and you're in it. I don't know. It's it'd be nice to play 4th edition again. I'd definitely give it a go.
It's definitely a more gamey game. It's definitely more kind of flirts with board game cross video game space.
Yeah,
it feels that way. It's not as to
it
say
almost
that you
demanded
can't...
a battle map and minis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was designed with that in mind.
Because it talked about movement in squares as its default. I remember that. It wasn't even talking about feet. It was just like when you are adjacent, meaning one square next to your enemy, you can hit.
One thing before we move on, one thing I really miss from 4th edition, the monster manual specifically, because I've said before I'm a big monster manual guy, is they used to have, aside from having quite a nice variety, even in singular monsters, they'd have a variety of different types of that monster all in the book, which is less common now. The one thing I really miss is they used to have a section for every monster. They would have a DC scale for lore checks or nature checks or arcana checks to tell you what you would be able to know about that monster, which was a really nice reference.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
Because like if they meet a DC 10, they learn this, but if they get a 15, they get the next paragraph, and a 20 is the final paragraph.
That's really helpful. That would be really helpful.
It was, yes, and I still occasionally, if I'm running a monster that I know people might have questions about, or one that's quite obscure, I will often dig out my 4th edition monster manual, find the equivalent, and use an appropriate, because the DCs were a lot higher in 4th edition, but I'll use an appropriate scale of that information, because it can be tricky, I think, or at least I find it tricky. Maybe you guys don't, but I find it tricky sometimes when somebody says, how much do I know about this creature? And it's in the moment trying to think, right, how much do I know about this creature? How much can I remember about the lore? What would they feasibly know? What class are they? It can be tricky in the moment.
Not interesting if I tell you.
Exactly.
To be like a bit of a surprise in a combat, maybe. Yeah. So I don't own the 4th edition book because I've never read it. So I didn't know that was in it. But that would be really useful if they'd kept that for the next edition, because I just make it up on the fly and just have to eyeball it and hope for the best. And having a solid table there would be very helpful.
Yeah,
I have a list here of future Rolldark press ideas that I've basically been I've had it on my desk for probably a year now. As you can see, it's had lots of coffee spilt over it over the years.
Oh my God.
And
it looks like
parchment
paper.
It's literally, this is actually what it this has not been doctored in any way.
It's not actually saying that that's just real coffee.
Desk. This is what happens if you spend a year on my desk.
How are you that clumsy, Rob? You've spilled that much coffee on your desk.
Hey, he fell on his head
year,
today,
man.
all right? And the icy pavement.
Exactly. I am pretty clumsy. I've got like 2 left feet, and I'm ridiculous. But I have actually got here what your players know tables. So what your players like. So history of. So I don't have monsters actually. I've got history of things that they would check. So do a table of what so say for example, if you're in a town or whatever, how it what would they roll? So that's quite a cool thing that they mentioned that, because I might do that. I might have to make it. But I've also got, what have I done so far? I've done a player's guide to compelling backstories. I've done an NPC generator, and I've done a GM's guide to world building. And I've got Would you like to see what I've got on my list? Shall I read out what I've got?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
go
hear
for
it.
it.
One-shot adventures, campaign setting, a GM's guide to improvisation, 100 traps and how to make your own. Oh, I've done that one. I've taken that one off. Yep, done that. A one-shot generator, an improvisation generator, an encounter generator, a GM's guide to building encounters, a GM's guide to immersive game mastery, a player's guide to strategies and combat, character backstory generator, a player's guide to compelling backstories, which I've already done, a monster bundle, an NPC bundle, a GM's guide to building NPCs, an NPC generator, a world building generator, a GM's guide to world building, a GM's guide to storytelling, a GM's guide to strategies and combat, a player's guide to role playing, a GM's guide to voice acting, a big bad evil guy generator, a GM's guide to creating big bad evil guys, a magic items bundle, how to create a role playing game. Oh no, sorry, this is actually me create a role playing game. Right? Yeah, it's like right down the list.
RB RPG. The Robert.
Yeah. A dungeon generator, cursed magic item bundle, 100 puzzles and how to make your own, how to be a pro GM, a game master's guide to vivid descriptions.
Ooh.
And then what your players know, monster table. Well, table. I put in monsters because of what you just said. Cool. Then
Nice.
I've got Cockspur Phantom 100 because that's a new plane on Microsoft Flight Simulator that I'd like to buy. There you go.
That'll end up in the website as like a title of an article, and people will be like, "What the heck is this?" It's just a live stream of you being on the joystick, going like,
yeah.
It does sound.
I've thought about doing it.
Monster.
I thought about doing it. I've got two little monitor screens on their way to me at the moment. I'm going to have either side of my monitor. It's going to have my flying instruments on, so I can get a little bit closer to the view of the actual aircraft when I'm flying in Flight Simulator. So I've got those instruments down there, so I could just look down there and see them and be like, yeah.
Do you have to with those sims? Do you have to? This is a complete tangent, but I'm very curious. Do you also have to like pretend to like know the different coding and words for communicating with the aircraft towers and stuff?
Yeah, when you're live on VATSIM, you do. Yeah, so you need to know your ATRACs, you need to know your stars and SIDS, which I know. So I've done it a few times where you're speaking to air traffic controllers who are training to be air traffic controllers. There's like a whole network of them, and you can sign up to it. You have to pass like an exam and stuff to basically know those things. It's fucking sick. It is so immersive. Like I have to like ask for like for my clearance for different airports, permission to land, whether or not I'm going to do an IFR clearance or if I'm going to do a VFR clearance, all of that.
Sure, yeah, either of those.
I love it. I fucking love it.
And ITG,
PFD and BBC and
that's it. PNG and
SHIT and
JPEG.
Yep. It's really geeky. I geek out on it so much. It's so nerdy, I know, but so I love it. I love it. I'm gonna get my private pilot's license at one stage in my life. I feel like it's something that I have to do.
Yeah. Well, when you have the Rolldark, airport, you're gonna need a private jet.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. The Rolldark private jet, jet black Honda jet. You see the Honda jet?
Wait. D&D at 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
We could do this. We could get a jet. Yes, and take it on a 4-hour trip from point A to point B, or just do a loop, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you're playing D&D at that height. It would be great at that elevation.
While eating pasta. It's amazing. Yeah, getting served pasta while playing D&D, and I'm flying you. Rob's flying you.
Yeah. I'll make the pasta. I'll be the cook in the back, being like,
cool. All right, everybody, we got it. Get ready. You're gonna have. You want the meatballs? You don't want the meatballs? What's wrong with you? All right.
Well, where could we go? We could just do like trips to New York and back, couldn't we? Just like ferry JC into the UK every now and again. Just
This is great for me. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
What would also be really fucking cool is if you could somehow get like an old school steamliner and do that Titanic trip while doing a live action LARP on the steamliner.
Yeah. Murder mystery.
Fucking ace.
Yeah.
That would be ace. And then you could even pretend it's been hit.
Yep.
Obviously you'd have to have a huge disclaimer saying it, like, don't use the life rafts. We haven't actually hit an iceberg. But let's pretend that we have.
It's like that
man,
Rick and
that'd be
Morty episode where they go on
so
the Titanic
awesome.
recreation, and everyone's like looking forward to hitting the iceberg, but it misses
Yeah.
the iceberg,
Yeah.
and it has the same effect.
Mass hysteria.
Yeah. Everyone's
Yeah.
like, "No, we missed." Oh god. Yeah, but
Brilliant.
D&D in every environment. That's the eventual goal.
That would be
world takeover.
flipping brilliant. If we could do that, that'd be great. That'd be so good. I
Oh,
wonder. You could also.
ages
Oh, sorry.
go on.
No, go on. Go on.
Ages ago, I was applying for a job for the British Antarctic Survey, and I was like,
as you do.
as one of their social media executives, I think, and I was like, imagine if I could use their social media to put out like a Call of Cthulhu game from the Antarctic, like at the Mountains of Madness.
Man.
It's like that would be so sick.
Basically, the thing that'd be so awesome. I told you guys I watched that recently, didn't I? The Thing. Watched it at Halloween. Yeah. Oh god, what a film!
Absolutely,
what a film!
That was the one that I had seen, and then about a week later, I ran into Keith David at a supermarket, and I was freaking out. I was like, "Ah!"
My god, it's so bloody good. Yeah, so good. Is there a thing RPG?
There's a board game.
Yeah, it's called.
There's a board game. Yeah.
There's a board game.
Call of Cthulhu, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think an RPG would be kind of hard to do. I've thought about this myself. I often spend a lot of my time thinking about my favorite things and how they would be an RPG.
Intended.
Great.
Yeah, and I think it would be quite hard to do just because of the betrayal and the mechanic of having somebody change partway through the game and things like that. It would be the board game sounds like it does a pretty good job of it. For a one shot, yeah, perfect. But an actual full RPG, I think it would be quite hard to do, especially long running.
Yeah, because in a way, it's basically a haunted house, right? The Thing is a haunted house.
Yeah.
If you've, I know you guys have played. Some of you have played Betrayal and House on the Hill, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh my god, I love it.
So that could basically be Thing. I imagine that's what Thing is. The board game. I imagine it's the same kind of rule sets because, like, you start off investigating. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Like,
and
there's
then
some kind of
halfway through. Right.
Yeah.
You could.
One of you becomes the betrayer.
Have a lot of fun with it. So on this vein, what did I watch recently? One of the Jordan Peele films, and it was about doppelgangers, and I thought I started having this idea. What was it? Yeah, us, right. I keep wanting to say This Is Us, and like, no, it's not that. That's a different show. But
that's romantic comedy.
I love the idea of, not knowing who your friends are or things that can replace you, things like in the Thing, like you have to sort of suss out and I wanted to ask you guys, what's your sort of ideal scenario for that? Like, give a good example of where you mess with your players as to who's who with them and that kind of trickery. Yeah, Damien.
I've done it. Probably one of the most memorable sessions of our home campaign was they had been with a group of NPCs for quite a while. And NPCs they liked, they got on really well with, they were traveling across Chult with these NPCs. And at some point, while they were off on a separate adventure that they kept the NPCs out of, just to keep them safe, I had decided that at that point, the doppelgangers had replaced them, captured the NPCs and replaced
the whole group of NPCs. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Doppelgangers play a big role in my home game. There's a whole thing which I won't go too much into if you guys are listening. But this was a while ago now. And one session when they were having their downtime, we talked about downtime, and they were having their conversations. A couple of these NPCs took a couple of them away and said, like, I need to talk to you about something. And it was two players specifically. One of them was my wife, so really sorry. And partway through that conversation, it turned out they were working for the Zentarim, or Zentarim, the Dark Guild of
the Black
Forgotten
Network.
Realms Law. Yeah, the Black Network. And they basically, midway through that conversation, said the Zentarim send their regards and drove a blade into each of their guts, just out of nowhere. And that was the end of this. That was right at the end of the session. And man, they to this day they talk about being completely blindsided by it, but how it was so frightening and so, like made them tremble. The idea that they had just been infiltrated without their knowledge
Mhm.
was so frightening that they just loved it. They loved it because they felt so strongly about it, because
Yeah.
they'd been so heavily betrayed and so blindsided that they just loved it so much.
I love the long game stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
sick.
it's awesome. So awesome.
Yeah. How about you, James? You thinking of one?
I don't think. What I really do want to do though is run a false Hydra at some point.
I was just about to bring that up. How weird is that? I was just about to bring that up. And honestly, like, I would have to do it with a new group if I wanted to do it right? And then I read this idea, someone had it done really, really well, where, and it might have even been the original author, where you start and you drop hints from the beginning, or these random confusing moments where suddenly, in the middle of combat, for no reason, the monster seems to take an extra hit, or you're healed out of nowhere, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
Damien, you regain 4 hit points, and James, you notice that the creature in front of you seems to wince as it opens up a new wound from the side, and people are like, what the hell is going on? And then 20 sessions later, you start learning about the cleric as that you had as the 5th member of your party that you just can't remember. Like, if you really start setting it up from then, how sick would that be? I really want to do a false Hydra.
Yeah, I have a player who wants me to run a false Hydra at some point as well, and I feel like you either need total buy-in from your players, where you can be like, oh, the shopkeeper tells you've never like heard of that person before, or tells you about someone and you're like, oh, I don't know who that, and they're like, well, they were with you last time you came in. They're like, I've never been here before. But your players need to be able to know that that's what they're playing into, so they either need to do your way, where you sort of like breadcrumb it and they find out slowly, oh, there was someone with us all along, we've forgotten them that way, or they go in knowing that there's going to be some memory alteration from the get-go and they don't necessarily know all the details of that. But like, if someone tells you something, just yes and it, like, you
Right.
don't start arguing with the DM being like, no, I remember this. And you're like, I'm telling you, your character doesn't remember it though, so it will save you.
You
on
have
that.
to you have to buy into it. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Rob? Would you ever do that?
I
Ever had a
definitely,
false Hydra?
yeah, I definitely give that a go. I think there's any kind of opportunity to make it to raise the stakes in situations is worth doing, especially when because a lot of the time when you're running D&D games, and I think this is kind of what's happening at the moment with my game, things are starting to go a bit sort of samey,
Yeah.
and I think in order to kind of, you got to like sort of start introducing different things, and that's why I was saying about your downtime table, JC, because I think that's so good, is that it introduces that element of just like a totally different angle that you can take with your game. So yeah, I'll definitely look at that. I really want to invent the Thing RPG. I think it would be so good, the paranoia that they'd have between each character. Because I've played Nemesis quite a bit, the space game. Have you guys played that?
Yeah,
Nemesis,
yeah.
where you've got to where you basically everyone has a secret objective,
yeah.
and it's like one of the secret objectives would be like destroy the ship and get on the escape pods. Will be like one person's. Another ones will be like capture an alien and get it back to Earth in the ship.
Nice.
Like there's like everyone's got a secret objective, but you all wake up with amnesia and you don't recognize what the rooms are, and you have to go around the rooms turning them over. It's very similar to Betrayal on the House on the Hill in that respect, where you have to like flip the rooms over.
Sounds
it's a great game.
Progenitor of Among Us or something like that.
It could work. It could work a little, as you've been saying that, and of course Nemesis is quite clearly heavily inspired by Alien.
Yes.
In its kind of themes and design. Having run the Alien role-playing game, it often plays a lot like that. Especially the pre-published sort of one-shots or smaller campaigns that they do. They always give the players secret objectives for each of the acts of the session that
is
they
cool.
have to achieve. And of course, being Alien, chances are one of them might either be a a company rep who's just
I
trying
was
to make
about to
a lot of
say,
money.
can you
One of
be a
them,
company rep?
yeah, one of them might be
Oh,
Wayland Yutani
brilliant!
guy.
one of them might be a
Get on that.
synthetic. One of them
Yeah.
might be a
A
synthetic, and
secret.
it's the two sides of both of those coins. So there's the company rep who you absolutely know is going to betray you. Turns out they're the only good guy in the group, versus the classic Burke.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the same with the android. It's the Bishop Ash thing where it's like one
Yeah.
android could be deadly and a real problem versus it could be
And
a
Ash
totally
is-
friendly and helpful.
Before getting
Uh,
impaled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I'm gonna go down to my local shop in a minute and buy that the
There you
Alien
go.
RPG.
I've
'Cause
been
I think
reading it a lot.
me and my mates would love that because I only thought you could be colonial marines, but if you could be like an android, it's like the alien rather than aliens.
Right.
Because I love that dynamic a lot, where you've got like a couple of guys who are just like miners that are on board the ship and they just want their payday. You've got the company. Well, but in the original film, is it the android is the company guy?
Yeah.
And then you've
Yeah.
got Ripley, who's like the first officer. Then you've got the captain who's just trying to like lawful good his way out of the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Then
it's
you got the cat. And the cat's very important.
yeah, the cat, yeah, of course. It's fucking great, like dynamic alien.
Yeah,
Really good.
it makes for a good TTRPG, like a good time around the table. And honestly, I
Definitely.
love the idea in any game of having a secret that you get to often reference. Icewind Dale does it officially, right? So Damien, you know this, and
Yeah.
and those of you who have played, you all it's encouraged, and the DM is allowed to encourage it, that you all pick a secret or two. I had a couple of people start my home game with a couple of secrets, including one that was like a ticking time bomb. Spoilers for those of you who want to play the module, but one of the secrets is that you can have a slod tadpole gestating in your chest, and unless it's healed in sometime in I think in the next 3 months or something like that, it will burst. And the book even reminds you of, like, if you have anybody in your party with the slod tadpole secret, this might be a good place for it to suddenly burst. And you're like, but that's death. That it's alien style death. Like it's not like you take a lot of damage and maybe you live or die. It is just your character wipes out and then a little thing scurries away into the corners to grow into a full grown slot. But there's all kinds of things. You can be the owl bear whisperer or something, or a yeti. You were adopted by yetis. You could have like a faction secret, like you're secretly working for the Harpers, but someone in your party is secretly working for the Zents. And I kind of started doing the same thing with my Ravenloft home game as well. My like Domains of Dread, sort of Shadowfell thing, where they all have a dark gift, which is just something that they slowly discover throughout their adventure, and they increasingly bond with it. Which, and if you haven't checked out the dark gifts from Van Richten's guide, I know it's not that popular. But you should check it out because they're a lot of fun. You could have like a living sentient shadow, and every time you roll, you get certain benefits from it, but every time you roll a natural one, something bad might occur from these dark gifts, right? Because they are, of course, from bad patrons and the dark powers that dwell in the mists between realms. It's really, really fun. Yeah.
Oh, I just had a thought.
Sick.
Talking of Barovia, that might be a cool way to run like a false Hydra. Just do it in a demi-plane, and because your memory's always being erased, you could be like, okay, so you start in one village, you walk to the next village, it's destroyed, but you don't tell the players that it's the same village. They're just going around in circles because they've forgotten it, so they just hit the same village that's destroyed again, no memory of it, and you have them going around until they figure, oh, there's something I could be done with that.
There's a lot of fun with that, man. Like, imagine just simple things like you walk into a shop and the shopkeeper or the bartender or whatever it is behind the counter goes, welcome back, long time no see, and then you're like, what? Or they go to pick up their order from something that they put in a couple of days ago, and the shopkeeper says, welcome friends, good to see new faces around here, or whatever, and they're like, we're here to pick up the order, we were here 2 days ago, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any order. I don't think we've ever met before. You must be confusing me with a different shopkeep. And then they're like, what is going on?
Messing with players is the best.
Yeah.
Because it often draws the biggest reactions when there's something completely unexpected. I just recently ran a session where I had them all out of nowhere they decided to take a short rest, and out of nowhere, I had them realize that they just suddenly woke up from a long rest, and all of that they were in their bedrolls, and everything around them, all of their gear was neatly stacked, all carefully placed around them, and every single one of the bags and pouches and everything they had was open, but nothing had been taken.
What the? Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. How frightening
that's
is that?
creepy.
You should have seen them.
that's
You should have seen them scramble. They were terrified.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I think
god!
the
What
only
was
thing
it? What was it?
That's really good. That's
Tell
really
us.
good, Damien. I'm writing that down because
What was it?
I've got cultists on the who are trying to like basically capture these guys at the moment. So that's quite a good one. That so they
It's
go
like-
they basically go through their stuff, but nothing gets taken.
Yeah, they wake
Or
up. They
something
just
gets
spontaneously
added.
wake up.
Yeah, that's the one I fear. Where something
Added.
is
Yeah.
added. Have you guys heard of the Bagman?
Yes, I've used the
Yes.
Oh, Rob, have you? You need to add this guy in.
No.
Oh, you got to check. I'll send it to you when I send you the other thing. It's this cool idea for an NPC, or really a creature, a monster, where it lives in your bag of holding. There is a monster, sort of degenerate, long-existing man that can travel between bags of holding, and there are certain rumors about this thing where if you say Bagman 3 times over an open bag of holding, he comes and finds you in the middle of the night, or if you leave it unattended, he'll crawl out. Sometimes he'll take something from your bag, and that's how you know, but sometimes he leaves something behind from one of his other adventures. So what happens if, like, one day you're one of your players says, all right, I pull out a potion of healing from my bag, and I was like, as you do, your hand grazes something strange, wet and hairy within, and when you pull out the potion, it's not a potion, but instead a strange item you've never seen before. And then, in the middle of the night, if someone's keeping watch, you can just say you see something shift and move by the bags stacked next to another player. It's such a cool idea for a monster. And it was really just generated from DMs, and I think it might have been even a WotC DM who was just sick of their players using the bag of holding too much and having too many shenanigans with it, and they're like, that's it, I'm putting a monster in this thing.
Great idea.
Yeah,
Really good idea.
super creepy.
And it's also an item that I almost always immediately give a party.
Yep.
Is a single bag of holding, just so they don't have to, and I don't have to worry about carry capacity for anything that isn't bloody huge. Just
right.
Hey, if you want to pick that up and put it in the bag of holding, sure, go for it. But then the bagman came out. I was like, well, this is perfect because I've given all my players this one item that I can now use against them.
I am working on, speaking of which, a sort of master Excel spreadsheet that I'm calling JC's Magic Item Cheat Sheet, because I've been meaning to do this for years, and I'm really only just getting around to it. I was like, this is one of my D&D 2024 New Year's resolutions. But basically the concept is, because I feel like magic items, there's no good out there. There's lots of different lists and charts and tables for magic items, but they don't accomplish what you really need in a sort of simple way, where I want to know at these levels what is a set of good magic items to award them, right? Like you, James, you're like, I almost always immediately give them a bag of holding. I want to also make sure that if they have a group that's not that stealthy, someone gets a cloak of Elvenkind or boots of Elvenkind. Or I want them to have, what's another popular thing that I always tend to give out relatively early? Not a rod of rulership. An immovable rod, right? Not super early, but something like that. So I've actually started this. I've gotten as far as mundane to common, and I've started on uncommon. I have yet to finish out rare, very rare, and legendary items that I want to flesh out on this document. But once it's done, I'm happy to share it with you guys if you think that'll be something useful for you.
Yeah.
Actually,
Definitely.
And I have it like properly sorted with all the stuff there, so you can easily filter. Like, okay, I'm looking for a consumable, like a one-time use thing, a potion. Okay, I can sort by that. Or I'm looking for something that's cursed. Okay, I can sort by that. Or I'm looking for something that's something else, right? So there's a website that I think a few of us know about that sort of already does this and has great filters, which I'm using as inspiration. But this has it where you can also label it as things that you would get. and
Nice.
and can distribute pretty relatively easily. Let me see. Yeah. I also have this is one I wanted to share with you guys. So for instance, cantrip scrolls, right? I always forget to award scrolls as magic items that they can find in the world. So I wrote down a handful of cantrips and first level scrolls that are good that they might find early on if I want them especially to accomplish certain things, like talk to this corpse. You find a speak with dead scroll. Or you have to communicate, you're in the forest and you want to send a message back to the town. You find a speak with animal scroll at some point right before that happens. Or little things like that, a vicious mockery scrolls, a couple of tattoos, the useful potions of early on. A clockwork amulet is another great little common magic item I like to award at times, or a moon touch sword if they meet something that has a physical resistance that they have to really really get to a magic item to hurt, like a werewolf or something like that.
I have
Anyway,
one magic
sorry
item.
for the rant, but
I have
I'm
one
really
magic
excited
item
about this.
should be avoided at all costs. Something that I gave to my players and
Mhm.
then lived to regret it for the rest of the campaign. Was a
Anything?
adamantine plate, but +3 adamantine plate. I
Oh.
did not hit them
For the rest of the campaign.
For the rest of the campaign. And if I did, it was with a crit that didn't double the damage. It just
Yep.
did standard damage.
Just did standard damage.
Waste. Don't do that. Don't make that a magic item.
Wasn't planning
give
on
it
it,
to your
but now I
players.
know.
But definitely don't do that. There's a
Mm.
reason adamantine plate doesn't have any in-game applications for it's +1, 2, or 3, and that is why, because it just makes it impossible to hit your players, and that's not fun.
Yep. Yeah, I'm also a big fan of random drawn items, or things that like have just random results. Like you guys know about the robe of useful items.
Yes.
I love something like that. Or the wand of wonder, where every time you use it, you have to roll a d100 and it produces a different effect. As much wild magic surge energy I can inject into a game, the better, basically.
Yeah.
Just the fact with the cloak, you could just pull a dog out of it.
Yep.
Just a full dog.
Here's a ladder. Here's a 10-foot pole. Here's a boat.
Yeah.
Here's a dog.
It seems very like stage magician-y, like, oh, it's a handkerchief at the sleeve and it just keeps going. It's just a ladder you're pulling out of it. It's very fun.
Yeah. It also, I think officially the item says something around the lines of you predetermine what patches are on the robe, apart from the standard ones. But I never predetermine it. I'm like, nope, they are unlabeled, unmarked. Every time you pull out a patch, it generates something new, and you roll in that moment.
I just do. Well, I just usually, if I'm giving one out, I'm like, there's one of every patch on there. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, nice.
You can use each thing once, so you can produce a dog once, produce a horse once, produce a boat once.
Wow. Can you reproduce another version of that item?
Ooh, is there a robe of items? Is that a robe of useful items?
No.
Yeah, right. No. Okay. Okay.
No, because I'm a bastard. No.
The answer is no.
Isildur's online. No.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any tales from the tables from last week or this week so far?
I do.
Ooh.
I do have one.
What happened?
I've got it in the form of a newspaper article.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's cool.
An in-world newspaper article. So, I had a group of my Spectarian players were breaking out of Revel's End prison, which, if you've seen the D&D movie, is the prison that they have they break out of in that movie. And they didn't do it, I would say, in quite as graceful a way as they managed it in the movie. So,
what, a party not doing things right? What is that like?
So the headline is "Tragedy Strikes Revel's End Prison as Fire Engulfs Guard Tower Barracks." So basically, they escaped the prison, setting fire to it as they went. And then when they got back to the town, so it's like a 6-week ship journey. The news had already reached civilization. I think they were going back to Neverwinter or Baldur's Gate, and so they arrived. They went, handed over the prisoner that they'd like broken out of prison to the person that wanted them broken out, and then they were like, we did receive news of your coming before this, and then they slid this newspaper over to the players. So it starts in a devastating turn of events. Revel's End Prison, a cornerstone of security in the Forgotten Realms, faced a catastrophic fire that consumed the Central Guards Tower barracks, claiming lives and leaving behind a trail of destruction. The Inferno, reportedly ignited by a kitchen mishap involving cooking oil, swiftly spread through the heart of the prison, leaving in its wake a scene of chaos and tragedy. The Central Guards Tower barracks, housing the prison's primary security contingent, became the epicenter of the disaster. Preliminary reports suggest that a naked flame, exposed to an ill-placed cooking oil store under one of the beds, led to the ignition of a hay mattress, resulting in a blaze that quickly overwhelmed the guards' living quarters. The locked door of the barracks room added an additional layer of complexity to the unfolding tragedy, hindering evacuation efforts.
Oh, man.
Out of the 70-strong guard contingent stationed in the Central Guards Tower, a grim estimate indicates that approximately half succumbed to the flames, valiantly trying to contain the disaster and evacuate their colleagues. Equally devastating were the losses among the incarcerated population. Of the 20 prisoners housed in the affected area, a significant number perished in the blaze.
Oh, shoot.
The locked barracks room door has raised
Oh,
questions
man.
about the prison's emergency protocols and whether it contributed to the loss of life. In the
Shit.
aftermath, Revel's End prison officials are grappling with the task of accounting for all personnel, 5 staff, the players, and 2 prisoners. The 2 prisoners they broke out an extra one because they liked him, remain unaccounted for, their fate unknown. As rescue and recovery efforts continue amidst the still smouldering ruins, one of the prominent figures affected by this tragedy is Warden Marta Marthanis. Known for her affiliation with the Harpers, the fate of Warden Marthanis remains uncertain, and the entire Forgotten Realms community anxiously awaits updates on her well-being. Survivors of the fire describe the harrowing experience, emphasizing the locked door as a significant obstacle. "We were trapped. The smoke was overwhelming, and we couldn't get the door open," recounts a guard who narrowly escaped the blaze. "It was chaos inside. We lost friends, colleagues, and prisoners. It was a nightmare." The investigation into the cause of the fire and the response procedures is underway, and Revel's End Prison faces a long road to recovery. The flames may have been extinguished, but the scars left behind by this tragic event will be etched into the annals of Revel's End history for years to come.
Hot damn. That is amazing.
That's
That's
really
So
cool.
I'd really drive home that them randomly locking the guards in their room before they set fire to it was maybe a cruel thing to do.
Honestly, the
Yeah.
in-world article approach is the greatest way to do it too.
It's very
That's really
inspired by
nice.
Baldur's Gate 3 and the
Yeah, the
Baldur's
Gazetteer.
Mouth. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's great.
So funny.
that's changeable.
Oh my gosh. Damien, I loved how you were just nodding. You were like you kind yeah, exactly. You were just like downcast eyes nodding. You're like, yep. Players locking doors and setting fire to things. Common. Seen it before.
So a
Pure
couple of them
evil.
were
Yeah.
a couple of them were disguised as chefs, and a couple of them were guards. So the chefs obtained all this cooking oil from the kitchens,
Oh my god.
stashed it under a bed, and then the guards set fire to it, and then
Oh,
with their
Christ.
keys just locked the door, snapped the key off in the lock, and then
Did they
ran away.
intend to kill people, or was it just sort of to be a distraction?
It was an afterthought, which means that their reactions when I read that to them were devastating.
Man.
Gosh, I know so many of my
alive.
groups that would be like, "Yeah, okay, cool, okay, we did it." Yeah,
Speaking of Icewind Dale, and warning, just ever so slight small spoilers. It's like side content spoilers for Icewind Dale, but that does something not overly similar. But what it does is, I find players tend to forget that guards and people like that aren't necessarily evil people. They are people. They are people first and foremost,
Damien,
and they are doing a job.
They're
And
evil if they oppose the players in any respect. or if they
Exactly.
Yeah,
But one thing Icewind Dale does, there is 2 characters in Icewind Dale. One is a humble shop owner, and the other is their child. And their child has got in with a bad crowd, who in actuality are actually quite bad. But when my Icewind Dale team encountered them, they found out who they were.
Is this Warwar
Yeah.
and Cora? Yes.
Yeah. They found out who this young man was and their connection. At the time, we had a player who was in the group who was a stalwart law-abiding citizen. Like, you do bad, you punished. That was that was the thought process, and there was something of a leader of the group, and so it was agreed that this young man who'd been brainwashed into a really bad group of people would be executed for their part in the recent invasion of a place in Icewind Dale that this group had facilitated. So they executed this young gentleman.
Oh my god.
And then proceeded to, when they finally got back to the town in Icewind Dale where the mother lives and owns an
Horrible.
inn there
Oh
for it,
yeah, great.
had to explain what had happened and why.
Wow.
Oh Christ
Wow.
almighty.
Yeah, it's amazing how much you can twist a knife when they realize, oh, wait a minute.
I think my saving grace in that scenario was that they met the mom first, and she begged them to go rescue her son from what she assumed was a bad situation. And he became a quasi-legendary figure because the canonical name in the module, again, slight spoilers for a side quest, his name is spelled Huawar. How the hell? And like, of course, the DM gets to the finally the name, and you're like in characters, the moment you're like, you have to go find my son, Huarwar. Horwar. And so for the rest of the campaign, people just called him Huawa. And we constantly, he's no longer at all with the party. They've well moved on from that point, but people will still every now and then go Huawa.
Forgotten Realms names, man.
Yeah,
I was so pleased. I was so pleased when they brought out Descent into Avernus, because there was that
the pronunciation.
the pronunciation bit at the beginning. I was like, oh wow, why can't they just do that with all their freaking books? Because like it matters. Like I've called Fran. I've got all sorts of weird names. I'm like, how the hell do you pronounce this place?
Sigil. Still not happy about it.
Sigil,
Shut up,
right,
James.
of course.
I'm not talking about Sigil. How do you guys pronounce Asmodeus? Do you say Asmodeus or do you say Asmodeus?
Asmodeus, I think.
Historically, I've said Asmodeus.
Asmodeus.
It sounds grander, I think.
Asmodeus, as in Mozart.
No, not Amadeus. Not Amadeus.
That's Amadeus, isn't it?
The
Amadeus,
Lord of the Nine, the
right.
basically the Satan equivalent of D&D. He is
right.
Yeah, Asmodeus.
I go to Mozart.
Yeah.
It's like
you're classically trained, and you've got a foot in the real world, whereas we do not, Rob.
Yeah, right.
But I think I love both, and I hate not using both sometimes, because Asmodeus sounds very fantasy scary. It sounds like Sauron to me, right? Asmodeus. It sounds like something from World of Warcraft, like a big BBG from that. But Asmodeus, I think, has the deus part in it, which makes you think of God. And obviously that's where the name is drawn from, right? So I love using that too, and leaning on the sort of quasi-Latin root that comes from, the Asmodeus thing.
Yeah.
So I never know what to tell my players or to call him. And I sort of let them see the name first and let them make their own opinion about how to pronounce it. And then I'm like, all right, that's what we'll go with.
If you're talking in characters, NPCs, they can have different pronunciations. That's fine.
Yeah. True.
Someone who is worshipping him maybe does the focuses on the deus part, and someone who just thinks of him as some big bad evil creature of myth is goes for Asmodeus.
Well, I also had a player who saw Strahd's name on a letter before they had heard the name, and I kid you not, they looked at it and they were reading out loud and called it Strayed. And I just looked at them, and it was just like a skin crawling moment. I'm like, ew. How do you pronounce it that way?
Strayed.
It's Strad. And I'm like, yeah, that's clearly Strahd. There's no E at the end of this.
Brilliant.
I do actually have a quick tale from the table. And I wanted to get your opinion on this, because here's the deal. This is with the private group that I run on Thursdays. So I'm about to meet with them right after this podcast. I know, Rob, don't rush in editing this too quickly because then it'll be spoilers for them.
Okay, cool. No worries.
They'll listen to it
Which
right
which
before
which group? Which group is this?
Danny
Oh
East.
yeah.
So this is a campaign. It's called Mistbound. It basically is like the grand tour of the different domains of dread from Ravenloft setting. And right now they're in Harakir, which is an Egyptian setting. So
yeah, nice.
last session, and they've been here a while, right? I intended for them to sort of like spend about 6 to 8 weeks in each place and then move on. They've been here for like a year. It's been a while.
Oh wow!
It's been a while. They TPK'd last session.
Oh shit!
It's a small party. I don't do this often, but it was a small party. They went into they're trying to gather basically a few MacGuffins, right? Long story short. And one of the MacGuffins lives in the lair of a lamia, which if you guys remember the MM, it's basically a conniving sphinx-esque sort of creature. She's a half lioness, half woman who has a servant army of jackal wares, which are basically were jackals, just the opposite, right? They're naturally jackals instead of humans. And she lives in a crumbling ruin, which her magic disguises as a beautiful, almost oasis like underground palace, right? Like a harem almost. Lots of pillows everywhere, burbling fountains, lots of pools, greenery and growth everywhere. And the MacGuffin that they're looking for is there. They knew what they were kind of going into, and they saw the MacGuffin. They confirmed its location, and we had spent the whole session sort of negotiating, and then they all sprung an attack, thinking to just take her by surprise, grab the MacGuffin, and run. And instead, they realized that she had cast Mislead, which is one of my favorite spells in 5e for a DM, because you can turn invisible and send an illusory copy of yourself that lasts for an hour that you can control and can speak and act like you. So all of their attacks were wasted. They didn't see her actual form. She was, just a few meters away, hiding behind a pillar, watching. And they were quickly overwhelmed because they were in the lair of this lamia. Now, she's not interested in killing them. So when I say TPK, actually what I mean is TPU, total party unconscious. What she is interested in is servants. And I have this idea I want to run by with you guys to see if you think it's a cool idea. I want to sort of pick it up with them completely brainwashed as servants, right? And give them maybe 20 minutes of like a skill challenge where they have to serve well, don't spill the platter, give her a good massage, make sure the baths are hot, that sort of thing. And then slowly but surely the illusion breaks over them and they realize they've been there for weeks and time has ticked away. And some external catalyst, one of their NPC allies or something, will show up or something. I mean, I say that, but I'm running the session in like 2 hours. I have to figure this out. But an NPC ally will show up and sort of help them break out of there and steal the MacGuffin. They succeed, but starting them off as servants and they don't even realize that they've completely forgotten that they were adventurers. They now serve the lamia and they're basically in cahoots. What do we think? Is this good? Yeah. Is this bad? Will they hate it?
I love that. I think it should be longer than weeks though.
Yeah.
Ooh, how long, James?
I would say maybe 3 months, 3 to 6 months.
I thought you were going to say years. And I was like,
I don't know. See, I don't know your plot. A year would be cool.
Yeah.
If it works with the plot that you're trying to work, I would say, yeah, definitely. If you can go to a year, do a year.
I could do a year.
If they are a year, if they're all human or
races. Two of them are human. One of them is tiefling. One of them is half elf.
Okay, so
and Danny, Danny and Co, if you ever listen to this podcast, I'm so sorry.
Well, I suppose, yeah. I don't know what age they are either, but if you could make something visible,
right, where they visibly age somehow.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that'd be cool.
Evil. I like it.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
where they don't realize how much time has passed, that they've just
No,
blindly
yeah.
been serving this lane, and then they realize it's been so long.
I suppose when they snap out of it and they interact with the NPC, provided you don't immediately kill them as well, they could tell them like you've been missing a year. Oh,
Like, we had to
so
come
good.
find you. We had no idea where you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Actually, you know what I think? The way I can make the time pass, one of the NPCs that's with them is an elder of a tribe, and he'll have just died in that time. There we go. Because they were trying to rescue him. He was like the one prisoner that they managed to grab from these jackal wares and try and save him. But now, nope, he's just dead. He's dead.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. I also had this will be a double whammy, because this is also the group that I had set up where it was so good. This last tale from the table. I swear I'm taking up too much time, but they walked into these jackalware caverns, right? These sort of caves in a cliffside in the middle of the desert, and these jackalwares had been replacing members of a village nearby, and I set it up so juicily, kind of on the fly. I didn't really have this intention, but they began to massively suspect that the son of the elder was a jackalware in disguise, right? Just sort of assuming that position. And as soon as I realized that they had this sort of mysterious thought, because the elder was sick in the tent, and the son was being very against the party, he was very suspicious of the party, and they in turn became suspicious of him. And the moment that happened, I was like, here we go, I'm gonna fuck with them so hard. So I started really laying it on thick. I had out of the goodness of their hearts, one of them offered a potion of cure disease to the village elder, right, because he was sick. And then I said, as you guys walk away, you hear a crash and then the sound of glass shattering, and you turn around and you realize that the son has knocked the bottle of potion of cure disease over at the bedstand. And immediately, all their suspicions flare up. They're like, oh, this is him. We're going to follow him. We're going to figure this out. Can I cast detect magic? And I was like, oh, not subtly. And they're like, okay, I'll save it for later. And so I planted all these little seeds. And then finally, when they decided to go hunt the jackalwares, I had the son follow them because he was suspicious of them, thinking the same thing. They might be jackalwares. And they got to the caves, and they kept running into some traps. They knew that there was a jackal around there somewhere. And then the son shows up behind them and grabs one of them and covers their mouth, because he has heard other stuff further on in the caves. But at the second that he grappled them, they were like, that's him, get him. They murdered him. They threw him down a spike pit. They round the corner, and guess who's in a cage? The village elder. And they go, what? And they immediately realize they killed the wrong guy, and the village elder is the one being replaced by the jackal.
Nice.
God, the look on their faces when they realized was worth every moment. God.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Again,
I think
if you ever
the theme of this session is messing with your players, it seems.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
The things you can do, right? This is why, Rob, you got to write your thing RPG. You can just mess with them all day long.
I'm totally gonna do it. I think it'd be brilliant. I think it'd be so much fun. Do you have any tales from tables, Damien?
I have sort of not necessarily a tale from the table, but a sort of a real quick shout out, if I can.
Cool.
I ran a game of Dungeons and Dragons this Sunday gone for 5 players who are staff at the place I work in the daytime. When I'm not
Nice.
A real
making silly voices in the nighttime. And 4 out of the 5 of them had never played D&D before. To the point of not even really understanding what it was about at all. Like, they had no preconceptions about it, no frame of reference. So I just really want to shout out to them, because they threw themselves in wholeheartedly.
Nice.
We had a really cool little one shot, again in a kind of Egyptian setting. The conceit of the beginning was very much Jafar disguised as a beggar, that kind of setup, which is a great setup. I encourage you to steal that from Aladdin. It's a great setup. And it went the way you imagined it would. But yeah, they threw themselves in. So really big shout out to Jonathan, Reese, Julia, Spen, and Patrina. You guys were fab.
Awesome. Oh, it's always good to hear that when you've got a group that have never played before and they throw themselves into it. It's it's inspiring stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great.
You,
I always
should have
find
told me, Damien. I would have guest starred as the parrot. I would have
Yeah,
happily
I
been
would have
Iago.
loved that. Yeah.
I don't know
If
about
I
you
get
guys.
one more moldy cracker.
Brilliant. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I play a session of D&D, and it could be like I've been running it for like 6 hours or even longer. As soon as I go home, I always pick up a D&D book and read it. I'm always like it always like inspires me. Like the players always inspire me. And I'm just like, I need to learn how to do more from this. I need to get more from this game. I need to get more. I need to give them more. Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
Do it.
Fun.
I just picked up a new book. I got the Deck of Many
Oh.
Things.
Oh, cool. Is it good?
Source book. I haven't opened it. I haven't cracked it open yet.
Ooh.
I literally picked it up, dropped it off at home, and then ran off to do the show last night. Got home late, went to bed later, and then woke up as my phone was going off and looked at it and was like, Robert Bradley. Oh shit, the podcast. My alarms.
So good. I don't mind being your alarm clock. That's cool.
Cheers. Oh yeah.
I'll nudge you next time.
A personalized call from
honey,
Rob
wakey,
Bradley.
wakey, honey, wakey, wakey.
Yeah. Can I get my wake up call from Rob Bradley?
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. And thanks to my co-hosts. And you'll hear us next week. Woo.
Thanks.
See you
Nice
then.
one.
Hear you then.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.